Okay.
Yes.
All right, that was relatively painless. Okay, we are up to Gimel. Say the Gulas Mitzrayim.
Yes.
The Reish Fetzi portion Maras now in the beginning of the story of the vision of the burning bush. Yidima Torah told us Moshe Rabbeinu Shalom Parashas Shleima. There's a whole introduction with Moshe Rabbeinu's lineage, and it says, I shouldn't say lineage, his history. By Dam Moshe grew up. Peter Rashi Gedula doesn't mean that he grew up in the sense that he became an adult, but rather that Sheminu Paro Beso, the Paro made him in charge of his household. Vayolo Miderech, excuse me. Vayolo Miderech Tevelios Koshua Paro. Reason and the course of nature dictates that he should feel connected to Paro, who, of course, whose house he grew up and who raised him to this position of power. Nonetheless, he went out to his brothers and saw their sufferings. Perish Rashi's Nasan Enov Libo, not just he saw the suffering. He directed his gaze and his heart, who also made Ser Alehim, to be in anguish upon them. Perish, he's bonain tamid idei achushis. He gazed closely by his physical sight, his sensual sight. Because he says that seeing makes more impression than hearing. So he wanted to see the conditions. By days is Bonei Tamid, and by doing this, he was constantly concerned to analyze the Nosi Ba'oli Mohem. This is the continuation of the previous piece, obviously, to share the burden with them, as if who Atzmatzmo himself before in practice, no save only Mohammed still was bearing the burden with him. As if you yourself are bearing the burden in practice with your friend. If you feel like you're bearing the burden, you will be quick to try and seek their benefit in any possibility. And then Torah mentions that not just for the masses, which is much easier to go out in theory and help the masses. The Moshe Rabbeinu focus. It's like, I think I'm not sure who said it, maybe Rav Kook, although it doesn't sound like him, said that it's very easy to love Klal Yisrael in principle, but it's much harder to love individual Jews in practice. And the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael is not to love Klal Yisrael, but to love every Jew, which is a much harder thing to do.
Yes.
That's what it says here. That he went down to the micro level. Bayar ish mitri, makeh ish ivri me echav. Emphasis on from his brethren. Dikon Torah, the Torah was very precise. Kiolo lohem abbas achim, that he had with them the love of brothers. V'achar k'sif alona Torah shalolovad. She'ish mitri makeh ivri until ashuk miyadoshko. Not just when it's a matter of an Egyptian against a Jew, but even when two Jews are fighting with each other. Vayomer said La Rasha to the one who was the belligerent one, Lama Takeriecha, why will you hit your friend? Kama Shuk Miyad Ivri, also somebody who was being maltreated by another Jew. Nasa Ba'oli Mo, he bore the burden with him. Ratzo Hatzilam Yadosh wanted to save him from his tormentor. And then Torah tells us, so not just in his country, in his birthplace. Where he was sitting, placidly and tranquilly. Even another country in Midian, where he was a foreigner. Who was fleeing power and fleeing death. He's wandering and he's distracted by his anguish. Nevertheless, they saw what the shepherds were doing there. With no Midian, the daughters of Midian, and threw them away from the well inappropriately. Moshe rose and saved them. So even in the land of his sojourn, in other words, in a foreign land. Even though he's fleeing death. There he will also detested illicit gains. Perush, but in this sense, the author says, Betza means Perush Avel, injustice. Perush Ramban Zab Yisrael. Begam Sham, and also there, Vayokam Moshe arose and saved them. It's because of all the person tells us further, should roll around, she feels Nosko and Midian. Not only did he save the daughters of Yisrael, the priest of Midian, from their tormentors, Avogam Vayash Sonam, he also went and gave water to their sheep. Haricha Kosev told us Moshe, call him Hashem, let's see the Torah spends some time telling about Moshe to tell, but before Hashem sends him to save the Jews. To tell us, it's not for no reason or randomly. Hashem chose him, he was trying to take the Jews out of Egypt, he can the Torah and give the Torah through him. Midas no say ba'ol. He went to restore balance and share the burden even with people who are not of his nation. I'm sorry. And in order to acquire the Torah, to give to us, he had to have this trait. The Sipra Torah Charkach. The Torah tells us afterwards, Hashem revealed himself to Moshe at the burning bush. Perush Kigam Anochi Kivyachol Imo Anoch Imam B'tzara. The reason why Hashem appeared in the burning bush is to demonstrate that he was suffering together with the Jewish people. And to tell us also that Moshe was accustomed to this understanding from his youth. He left his bracha and wrote to follow the ways of Hashem. Like it says, following his ways. She's like, he's merciful and kind. So to you should be and just like I hear, if people shout to me, Moshe Rabbeinu should hear and will hear when people shout out to him. And now, or afterwards, I'm not sure after what, we're going to talk about something which is actual and practical. Pashush Shmos Perek Shishi Pasuk Chavtes. It says, Moshe Aaron. When Moshe returned to Egypt, Moshe and Aaron went for the Suk Kozik Nebene. So he gathered all the elders of Israel. The Amena and the nation believed that Moshe was sent. Vayishmu Kipakot, and they heard and accepted that Hashem was coming to redeem his nation. Never says Moshe Aaron Paro. After this, they came to Paro. They marked it low to say to him, Call Mar Hashem Elokei Yisrael. Shachas Hamid said, let my people go. We inferred. Why go first to the Jews and tell them, we're going to get you away from Paro? Big talker. First go to Paro and get and release us, and then come back and tell us that you were successful. Right? And then if come back and say, they were Paro and they started the process. Their kind of Paro was a mighty king. Was without permission. But besides Moshe, although many years had passed, was still subject to a death penalty. Why Paro leave him alive? Especially because the request to let my people go, it's a revolt against the king. It's treason. There's no greater rebel against the kingdom. Lomar to say, they make us free. There's no more revealed miracle than this. And were I'm supposed to have known that this took place in the palace, it would have been a great consolation then. So why do you make the gathering of the Jews precede who's going to Paro? So he says it must be. They lack the merit to be redeemed unless they manifested some measure of belief. And they were not Moshe and Aaron would not be able to have the revealed miracle of being saved from almost certain death when they went to the house of Pharaoh, unless Bnei Yisrael set the tone by the emunah which they manifested. That's what he told the Jews first. They believe, and they heard that Hashem is visiting them again. That's what it says immediately afterwards. After they believed, Paro, Moshe came to Paro. If not for the Munah, they could not have come to Paro. Bifrat Lomarlo Shalachas Ami. That's to say, send out my nation. They couldn't have done that unless Bnei Yisrael supported them with their implicit faith in them. Only after the Munah was manifest could they rebel against Paro. And only then could Paro be powerless against them and not immediately put them to death. It's almost like a Hasidic idea. In other words, the Rebbe only is as strong as the Hasidim's belief in him.
I once heard a story that a couple came to a Rebbe and they said, we're married for many years, we have no children. Give us a bracha. We should have children. So the Rebbe gave them a bracha that they should have children. So the couple went out. They were all excited. They went to Walmart. They bought a crib. They bought a carriage, diapers, all the things you need. They painted the room for the baby. The Rebbe said. So the Rebbe's Gabbai, a year later, so they had a baby. So the Rebbe's Gabbai came to him and he says, I also don't have any children. And you've given me brachas and I didn't have a kid yet. Why is that? He says, when I give you a bracha, what do you do? Do you go home? Do you go to the store? You buy the things that the baby needs? You don't believe in the bracha. If you believe in the bracha, then the bracha will be mekuyim.
Right.
I don't know if it's a true story or just a story. It's a story.
It's a similar idea. In other words, there's a mashal which I think comes from the Greeks, but the Rishonim use it a lot, which is that the later generations sometimes are like a nanasa gabe anak, a dwarf on the shoulders of giants. So the giants were the earlier generations, but since we're there on their shoulders, we can see more, even though we're much smaller than they are. So to here, in other words, the foundation, the giant is Bnei Yisrael. Afterwards, Moshe and Aaron could do their stuff, but they can't accomplish anything without Bnei Yisrael being underneath and supporting them.
Right.
When we carefully analyze God's command, we'll see this clearly. First, Moshe said to him, Hashem said to Moshe what the crux of the shlichus was. What he asked to know, I'm going to say Paro, but say me, take my nation out. We're going. That's the core of the shlichus. For what I need. Then you told him, what are you going to tell the Jews? God send me to you. This name is going to come to Jews to let them know about redemption. He gave him the order which this should all be accomplished. Zivilly in this order they'll be redeemed. First gather the elders. And tell them, Hashem Gomer. Near ever Gomer. Gomer. And the next one says, they're going to listen to you. They're going to believe in you. They have the sign given to their hands. B'lashon zeh of Takop Akadati, Nigolin, they'll be redeemed. That's they're going to believe in you. Came on Yadam Skusa Emuna, and once they have the merit of Emuna, Chakav Davka, only then Basata El Melch Mitzrayim should you go to the king of Egypt, and tell him what you're going to tell him.
Interesting that when you read these psukim, it doesn't seem to reveal anything. So Hashem is talking to Moshe. He's saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. It doesn't seem to but to the Alter, it was
Right.
like
The
revealing.
Alter was much, yeah, he read Sukkim differently than we do.
Exactly. He sees that there's a whole plan here. It's not just,
Right,
telling a story.
right,
There's a plan.
right. P.S. Seder Hazeh, the Alter, the Kelm is, the Seder is the big thing. Also,
Right.
Moshe Ba'aron, by Suzik Nebene Yisov Gomer, V'yamene Achar Bo Moshe Ba'aron, he goes, Ha Ronu Seder HaGeula. So if you want to affect the redemption, this is the way to do it. First, no Seder Ba'ol. You have to share the burden with your fellow Jews as collectively, individually, and Kivyachol Shalech Bisneh, the Mishalech, which is the Hashem who is sending the agent, starting the agency, he demonstrates his nosei ba'ol with the burning bush, Shaliach, and the agent himself, Bergelo, in his customary behavior, he's been accustomed to, with which he's been accustomed to behave. Then afterwards, the merits of emunah, v'geula, and redemption. The redemption of Egypt is a sign for the ultimate redemption. If you start with Nosi Ba'on Chavero and you progress then to Emunah, then you can get to Geula. Okay, do you have time to do Dalit?
Yeah, I have time, sure.
Okay, I'm not sure I do, but let's try.
Yeah, we can stop if you want.
Echas Nosi Ba'on Chavero. Amarli Echad Me Habayis. The Bayis was the Talmud Torah in Grubin, which was the school where first school he started. B'simcha Tila Kiataho Lech V'Tov. I'm not sure what he's saying. Praise be that you are that you are getting better.
That you're doing well.
Yeah.
I think these mamarim were like letters, so maybe he's just saying,
Oh, I see. You're right. Good point. So
it's just
he's
a
writing
greeting.
letter.
Like I heard you're doing well, or you're doing.
Yeah, I heard you're doing well. Thank you. V'amarti lo niflot. When somebody told me you're doing well, I gave him a wonderful thing, a piece of learning. It's good that you are. It's true that you are rejoiced in the chesed of Hashem. Tov, when that's good. I will today you should know. The people make a mistake in this. Miderech olam, the way of the world. Kishishomim al cholesh orech mitov. When they hear of a sick person getting better, they're happy. They no longer have anguish in his anguish, even though he's still in pain, but he's on the mend. This is not the way to do it. As long as the person who was involved in anguish has not gone fully restored to his original state, you have to continue being in anguish with him. Just like the sick person himself. As long as he hasn't got back to his own health, he himself, he's in anguish, at least the minimal amount. So to other people have to join his anguish, to at least the minimal amount. There actually is a difference in mourning practices between Jews and non-Jews. Non-Jews, the mourning ends with them when they bury the body. And that is, there's no official mourning and after that. Whereas by Jews, the actual mourning begins after you bury the body, because the anguish really continues and is compounded after the person is buried, and therefore the person needs much more assistance and support during that time than they needed before the burial. So it's a very different type of approach, and it's meant to teach us that don't that doesn't end. It's like open-ended.
Right.
So that most people are not able to participate in the anguish of others, unless it's a really, really exaggerated and tragic anguish. So therefore, since most people are not capable of being nocebo on a lower level, um, uh, uh, it's heart no longer has that natural pain. It no longer has that anguish. What does a true nocebo do? So he tries, makes the effort to feel with the same quality of emotion the anguish of his friend. And not just what you yourself, in other words, the person being nocebo, not just what you feel on your own, but you would only feel very often if it was a tremendous tragedy or a unique situation. No, even on a much lower level. It caused much lower shoulder, so therefore, as long as the guy has not gone back to his full health, a guy in the same way, you still have anguish with him. Varaya, to bring evidence from the Chumash. Rivka, Ishtadlo Likmo Chesed Kodu. Rivka wanted to do as much chesed as she could. Of mine to draw water about a Gmalim for the camels. So that the slaves of Eliezer would not have to draw the water. We made Sar Hashiva, the anguish of drawing up the water. Mat Mizer Lohem. So there's these burly men. It was very small. Not so it wasn't so much anguish. It's minor. Being Koseim lost the Zos. Nevertheless, if she had done this, she would not have met the stipulation of Eliezer. I was trying to end up being Abraham Avinu's daughter-in-law. Another wife of Yitzchak. The mother of Yaakov. Another mother of Kleisel. In other words, even that minor nocebo, which is not necessary, really, they're burly, capable, muscular men. But the nocebo, even that small amount, that small tsar, that in itself was essential for the passing test. Raise char nocebo koldu mazos. See what the reward is of just the being nocebo on a micro level. Because and certainly is if he's not in anguish over the anguish of his friend, when it's greater than a koldu, he's much worse. In other words, every level of anguish and pain requires more nocebo, and not just the highest level, but each level from the most minor to, of course, the most major. See how much of a kodu there is in this. Like a mashu. And without how much with every kodu, how much you can lose if you don't do it. Zem I feel this is frightening. See the power of Musar in just a short time of contemplation. How much you have able to gain for your entire life.
Apparently, someone came to the altar, and the altar said, "How's so and so doing?" And he says, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, he's okay. He's getting better. He's getting better. So nothing to worry about."
Right, and that's the altar.
So the altar said, "Wait a minute.
Okay, so now I understand. You're getting better, not spiritually, but physically.
Right.
This guy, not so fast.
Yeah.
Now
wait a minute. Let me tell you something.
Okay. Okay, Yashikoyach.
Very good.
Next week we can learn how we can learn that. And
okay, G'mar Chasima Taiva. All right, take care.